was the scholarship art student at the Minneapolis Art Institute and then the Art Students League in New York. But if you were an American artist at that time, Europe, Paris was beckoning. So he buys a ticket for $10 and he is on a tramp steamer. He arrives in Cherbourg in around November 1st, 1921. He's sitting at the cafe table when Josephine Baker is doing her famous scandalous, the Revue Negre, the Black Revue, dancing, using banana skins as her bikini. He is there right in the center of the spontaneous combustion of Paris as the center of the art world. He moves then to Vienna. Now he speaks German as a native. He's living in Vienna, and he's getting commissions for Scribner's and Vanity Fair and Esquire and some of the leading print magazines back in New York. He's sending his drawings and his ink, satirical cartoons and drawings. He's sending them to the editor of the New Yorker. They're publishing these beautiful little black and white ditties in the New Yorker by the late 20s and getting a check for $10, $20 a month. He's living like a king, writing in his journal, living the life that is really something out of a Fitzgerald novel, like what it would like. Hemingway, Fitzgerald living in Paris in the 20s and living in the continent. He comes back to New York, and his spirit as a social commentator, an observer of people, this is the beginning of his social realist period of the 1930s. As Fitzgerald talks about New York at this time, the tempo of the city had changed sharply. The parties were bigger, the buildings were higher, the morals were looser, and the liquor was cheaper. The jazz age now raced along under its own power, served by great filling stations full of money. Kind of this Gatsby-like world that is heating up, and then, of course, the big crash. Now he's down in the Bowery with his sketch pad and making some of his most important lithograph prints. He's showing the bread lines. He's showing the suffering of the Depression. He really just unleashes a ferocious set of important lithographs about what life as an observer really finds his voice and his desire to be a very socially relevant artist at that time. By the late 1930s, Adolf Dehn is rising to the top of the American art world. He's awarded a Guggenheim Fellowship, the most prestigious art award that a working artist could be granted. Dehn, if you had to find his high water mark, when the name Adolf Dehn was almost a household word, was the August 8, 1941 edition of Life magazine. And here is a 6-page spread on Adolf Dehn's work in full color. If there's one iconic image that I believe that Adolf Dehn will be known for, it's his fascination with Manhattan. He becomes really one of the most consistent observers of New York City of any artist of the 20th century. There was a book published a few years ago called Artists Look at Central Park, and of all the famous artists that they could have chosen who had painted Central Park, going back to the ashcan artist of the turn of the century, and of course all the great artists who had painted New York, they chose Adolf Dehn's Central Park painting. That painting of Central Park in 1942, we chose it as the cover of my book. Here's the Adolf Dehn's. This is one of the most popular posters or tote bags or scarves that you can buy at the Metropolitan Museum bookshop. And if you dig below the surface, there's a reason for that, because Dehn seems to have captured Manhattan in its in its prime, the great international cosmopolitan center, the new capital of the world in the post-World War II era. And here, for those who have grown up in Manhattan, here is the park